to another EXP Podcast. I'm joined this week by my co-host, Luan Vetoreti, and we've got two wonderful guests with us today, and we're going to be discussing lighting art. So we have with us Guillaume. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. So I'm a lighting artist from France. I work for several studios in Paris as first environment and then lighting artist. I'm working now at Ubisoft Barcelona, and I worked on projects like Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered, and I am working now on AC Valhalla.
Awesome. And we also have Peter. Take it away, Peter.
Hey. So my name is Peter. I'm a junior lighting artist at Ubisoft Montreal, and I'm currently working on an unannounced game. So it's all a secret for now. And I used to work at Tuque Game, which is also in Montreal. And we worked on a official Dungeons and Dragons game, which is called Dark Alliance. It's announced, but still under development. So yeah.
Awesome. Sounds really cool. Right. So we continue our kind of intro series. We're going to be talking about what is lighting art. You guys both being lighting artists. So, Guillaume, do you want to give us a little intro about what lighting art is?
Yeah, sure. So a lighting artist is basically someone that is taking care of translate the mood and the ambience in a game for a location, for a scene, or even cinematics. We are working closely with a lot of other people, like artistic direction, for example, concept artists, level design also, because we can help them to drive people, players through a level, and also FX artists. So yeah, a lighting artist is mainly someone that can work with a lot of other people to assure that everything is readable and playable in a level.
How did you get into lighting art yourself, Guillaume?
Before doing lighting, I was environment artist, and basically after my first internship, I went into Archvi's studio, and we were like 4 or 5 people, and I had to learn how to do environment and also lighting, and it's at this moment that I really jumped into this, into the lighting art.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Okay, I guess in the same vein, Peter, how did you get into lighting art?
So I did study in 3D animation. So basically all the modeling, texturing, rigging, animation, and all that stuff. But I was mainly interested into making environment for games. But at some point I realized that I didn't have a proper lighting for any of my scenes, right? So it looked kind of weird without a proper lighting. There was something that was always off with it. And that's when I started to look into lighting itself, how people lit their scene. And then eventually I realized that it was actually a job, a proper job, a lighter, right? That does the lighting then for film, for animation, for games, for actual practical lighting in sets and movies as well. And that's pretty much how I got to become a lighting artist. I didn't really try to become a professional environment artist, even though I did study in it. But I got directly into lighting from the very start, as an intern, as a lighting artist at Tuque. Then eventually I became a junior at Ubisoft. Yeah.
It's always interesting, isn't it? Like you get the revelation moment at some point where you go, "Oh, I can do this as a job." What?
I know, right?
You just sort of end up like being really passionate about it because you can do it, like what you love as a job, right? Pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many jobs out there that's so underrated. There's lighter, I guess. There's grooming artists. There's rock artists. There's vehicle artists. I mean, a lot of the jobs could be categorized as a props, a modeler, or environment artist. But beneath it, there's so much smaller job trees that you can choose.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I remember that when I left the school, there was no job as a lighting artist at that time. It was the environment guy that was doing everything like environment and lighting. And it's really with I think it was with the release of Unreal 4 that people were becoming to specialize into different disciplines.
Yeah, I think it was sort of around back then that you started seeing lighting art come up more and more, right? Like so around 2012, 2013 kind of era.
So lighting is something that actually, I guess, is one of those things that perhaps a lot of students or people getting into the industry might not kind of realize is as impactful, or, like you said, is a role that you can actually do. But it is something that can really make a big difference to the overall look of a project. So it'd be interesting if you guys could just tell us a little bit about kind of your process of how you actually go about approaching lighting a scene. How about Guillaume starts us off?
Yeah. Well, for me, one of the most important things that I always do is gather references. Like, I mean, I'm really like the really picky with this, but for me, I spend tons of time doing this, getting correct pictures, correct reference, correct color palette. It's really something that will save you time at the end doing this in the beginning of the process, and you will not like lose yourself doing this, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I have like a kind of a list of what I'm doing when I'm creating a personal project or a scene. It's like I set up my basic environment, then I go into the camera. I try to find the good camera angles and stuff. And then I'm doing like what I call the basic ingredients that are directional light or light source, fog, and I set up my exposure. And then when I have this, I can iterate on like further lights or details and everything.
So do you collect reference more as a mood, or do you prefer to sort of collect reference as more of a this is what I'm going to do kind of thing?
It's both. I take on one part mood that I really like, and once I know what kind of mood I want to go for, I'm taking really close picture of what I want, like target render.
Usually when I choose my references, it's mostly for the composition and the value and the overall mood, I guess, of what I'm thinking of doing. But as my approach for lighting, I guess I usually start with, well, depends on if it's a work project or a personal project, right? But overall, I guess I usually start lighting the scene, with no colors really, just black and white, just to get the proper values and set up the proper composition of what I want. If I can, I usually just work with a few shots, depending on the goal of the project. For a personal project, I usually just have one single camera shot, and then I basically just consider the project as almost like a picture or a painting, not too much as a game. But of course, in working in the game itself, we have stuff that we actually have to do, right? We have to make it visible, gameplay wise, the design wise, the artistic direction. So what I would say for work in the actual game, I would usually go big first, make it overkill, then make it super good looking first. And I don't really care about the optimization in the beginning. And then as soon as I got it, something that I'm pretty happy with and that got validated by my art director and lead, well, I would try to tone it down little by little, in terms of the optimization. But visually, I try to keep it the same, It's like go big first and then tone it back without losing the visual quality, but while trying to keep it optimized for gameplay reason and engine wise, right?
Both of you guys kind of mentioned gathering references. So I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about kind of references are you looking for? Because obviously you can get like a piece of concept art that you're working from. Looks really nice, but perhaps the lighting in there isn't something that will translate to 3D. So are you guys kind of looking at those concepts and trying to gather the mood from there? Or do you prefer to find like physically realistic ones? Or how can that be? Because I mean, there's a lot of pictures out there that are also edited or doctored. So it seems like it could be quite tricky to find accurate lighting out there. Guillaume?
Yeah, usually I try to identify what I want to search, like if it's more clouds, shapes, or gradient or colors. I try to separate by topics, and also like if I'm going for something that is realistic, I will not look for like cartoony style or something. But in general, I try to have like a big picture of landscape or something that is close to what I like or what I want to do. And then going more and more into details of, I don't know, like for example, materials, references for grass, ground, clouds, and overall shape also.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mine's pretty much the same as Guillaume. It's mostly for the mood and the subject in itself, right? If I'm planning to do a scene where it's super moody and dramatic, well, I would usually try to find something that would help me figure it out how to make it dramatic, like a super dark sky or super long shadows on how the grass would look with long shadows on the ground. What's the overall mood that you're supposed to feel, or the player or whoever's gonna watch that scene or the picture should feel, right?
Yeah.
So that's the mood in itself. It's the most important part for me when I gather references, because references shouldn't be the perfect exact same thing as your scene. You have to interpret it your way and make it your stuff, and not just simply copy paste the same lighting and same picture. That would I guess that could consider as a study to practice. But then again, it would be a lot more original if you could do your own twist on it and have something more personal that gives more feeling to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you can mix a lot of stuff that you find in different pictures and gather everything and try to create your own picture of this.
You were talking about gathering references for like grass and other parts of the scene. So you're looking at lighting. So how come you're gathering kind of references for those? What is it that you're looking for in those references for when you're approaching your scenes?
I think it's mostly how lights will react to objects. Like, for example, if you take something that is looking really cloudy, but with big highlights in the sky, you will have highlights on the grass that will lit everything a bit like Ghost of Tsushima kind of style. And it's this kind of stuff that I try to find and to identify when I'm looking for references on materials, like how this will react to lighting.
Yes, yeah. It's pretty much how would it should look and how it could look, right?
Yeah.
If you're working with something more real, or you're not sure how the light would bounce in a I don't know, in a room with red walls as a paint, or how the props would react with the GI on the ground, or how the metal would you should look, right? So that's you try to aim for something, and references for mood and how material reacts really do help with it in the end. And it's not you shouldn't be looking for reference while you're working, and you should do more before you're working, so you're more prepared and not doing something spontaneously, and then sometimes it could become something super stylized without knowing it, or something that doesn't make sense, or it looks off, but you're not sure why, and then you're trying to fix it through another thing that you shouldn't be, or the material itself, you're trying to boost the color while you were supposed to reduce the lighting or something like that, right? You're trying to prepare your scene and make it easier for you, and then more technically correct and properly lighting the scene. That's the point of PBR as well, right? You have to understand how PBR react with certain materials and certain lighting scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Like when you say you have to sort of try to inject some of those visual elements that you like and stuff into it. How often do you say, in I guess more of a professional situation, do you go back to the, say, environment artist or material artist and you ask for maybe a little bit of a change on a material or an asset so you can capture the light in this environment a little bit better?
Personally, we do have a lot of back and forth at work, no? If the material looks kind of off, well, we usually ask the texturer and the lighter to speak and figure out together on the same page to find where's the issue. Is it the lighting is too much, or the texture color is too dark or too saturated? And then there's also the fact if the art director is liking this look. It could be stylized, it could be really fake. It doesn't have to make sense in terms of physically making sense, but if it looks good and it works technically, then that's the end goal, right? It doesn't have to be super extremely realistic in terms of how we make it. It could be kind of faking it as well in terms of lighting and texturing.
Yeah, because I guess you gotta break some rules sometimes to make things look quite how you like them, right?
Right.
Yes.
For sure.
How about you, Guillaume?
Basically what we are doing is we try to play the game as much as possible, and we played it with leads most of the time, and we just said we just say what we want to change. Like if we see something that is not working, we just said, okay, this is not working. We have to go speak to the texture artist, ask him if he can change the texture of, as Peter said, like little bit more the diffuse, for example. And at the end, it's just like a matter of having everyone talk to each other, and it just work if everyone is at the same page. Like we just said, you have to also said like it's not against the work of anyone. It's like we just need this to be more clear or dark, and just work as a team.
It sounds like a good understanding of other kind of parts of the pipeline is really important to what you do, with kind of knowing how materials work. And you mentioned PBR, Peter, and I guess kind of an understanding of the side of what the environment artists do, so that you're able to kind of communicate well with those teams to kind of get the effect that you are after. Is that something that you try to kind of practice more in your personal projects, to look at those kind of other areas of material creation, or doing more kind of whole scenes?
Well, personally, when I do personal projects, I try to focus on lighting only. So if I can find or buy some assets that has, really good quality in terms of texturing and how it could react with the normal lighting scenario, such as Megascan stuff, are perfect for lighting studies, or even really high quality assets that people make. Those are usually what I try to start with, and I don't really have to tweak the material that much. a lot of time I do have to just to have the result that I want. But I'd rather not fix a texture if I can, and just start directly with something that's really good. And then I could just simply focus on lighting and doing the the artistic part of lighting and not fixing it. You know.
Yeah, it's the same on my side. Like every time I'm doing personal project, I try to find balanced material and good quality assets with which I can work. And if for example I have something that is not working, I will try to fix it, like a material or something. But I mean, if I can't find on Megascan, for example, a texture, a shader that is working better, I will prefer take this one.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking for these scenes to relight on the marketplace, or when you're saying trying to source these high quality assets, what are some things that you particularly look out for? This might be something that could help environment or texture artists kind of know what things they should be kind of focusing on for if they're selling scenes or when they're creating their scenes to actually get a better lighting result. What is it as a lighting artist that you particularly kind of pay attention to?
I usually try to look if the texturing is done well. If the diffuse color is not too saturated or too dark, that would be ideal. Most of the time it's not, but it's not that hard to fix it anyway. But that's mainly the first thing that I look for. And then maybe on how the modeling is done. Is it too low poly? Is it too high poly? If there's not enough bevel, well, the lighting, it's not going to react properly. There's going to be sharp line and stuff that I wouldn't want to work with. And then I guess it would be the subject of the scene as well. If it's easy to mess it up and build on my own something with those assets, or if it's a giant single mesh that I can't really work with or I can't really play around with. So that's those are the main things that I look for when I try to look for a project that I want to relight or to study with.
Yeah, it's basically the same on my side. I try to look at the shader. If the texture is correctly done and balanced, it's a real plus. And yeah, as Peter said, like the models, if they are enough good, uh, I mean, not too much, not too low poly, and yeah, I think he resumed quite well.
It's funny. I keep telling people, put more divisions on your bevels. No, it's 2020. Go for it. It's no problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Won't have that problem soon with the Unreal Engine 5 and that promo where they're advertising meshes with 20 million polys.
Maybe in 10 years.
Yeah. I mean,
we'll see.
Yeah, the tech looks really solid, but I mean, I guess like this is a technical demo, and this is not like a full game, obviously. But I mean, for the future, it announced some really nice stuff on this side.
This actually bring up an interesting question. If you're looking for assets on, say, Megascans or the Unreal Marketplace or anything that you kind of want to use on a scene that you're working on, if you had the choice, would you just go ahead and pick a nice high poly cinematic asset to just put it in? Or do you think, I mean, obviously if the performance was there and you could handle it, or would you just prefer to work with something more game ready? Guillaume?
Well, I guess it depends on if it's a personal project and I'm aiming for a picture at the end, like some shots, I will take the high poly model, because when I work for shots, I don't care about performances. I just put everything to the maximum and make this look good. Take my shots and then it's okay. It's okay if it's not game ready.
That's my motto.
Yeah, like for a game, if you are working in a company, it's different, obviously, because you have the performance topic, and yeah, in this case, you have to be careful on the size of the mesh, the poly count, and everything.
How about you, Peter?
Yeah, it's the same for me. I usually just go for the highest quality possible. And for a personal project, I don't care at all for the optimization. The end goal would be to have a really good render of a single picture, as if it was a painting almost, not a game ready map or a game ready lighting. That's I keep those constraints for work. And if I have the option, I mean, at home on a personal project, I wouldn't care at all for gameplay wise, like game design or anything that has to be optimized at all. I just want the freedom of creating something beautiful in the end, and that's the only goal I have for a personal project.
I mean, at the end, I guess you're trying to sell a mood that you find interesting, right? Like, you're just you're concerned with just creating the art. You don't worry too much if it's if everything's performant, etc. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if you are worried about this, like showing, for example, for an interview, this kind of really high end shots, and someone asks you, like, do you know optimization and everything, it's the moment where you can say, yes, obviously I know how optimization lighting is working. But
it's interesting that you bring that up, actually. How important do you think it is to show that in your portfolio?
I mean, in the portfolio, I would go for the highest quality stuff that you can make, to just, as you said, sell the mood, sell your work. Like, I can do beautiful artwork, and this is why I'm selling you. And if they are responsive to this during the interview, they can ask, like, how do you optimize everything and stuff. And this is when you can say, okay, this is my workflow to optimize lighting. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's like you show your best, and that's it.
Right. I mean, I think it doesn't only go for lighting. I think it could also go for modeling and texturing as well. You know, sometimes, I mean, I guess most of the time students would hang up on small trivial matters and worry too much about the technical stuff. And they end up with a project that isn't as good because they kept worrying about the tech and the optimization. But the truth is, depending on the game, you have no idea how to optimize properly for a game. I mean, if it's an open world optimization, it's completely different than a single player game such as Last of Us, or, you know, those kind of stuff. The studio and the technical team will teach you no matter what anyway. So I'd rather see something that looks good, that you can make something super well, super good looking. And then as long as you know the fundamentals of how to, you know, optimize something, then the rest of the smaller way of the technical ways of optimizing stuff, or even the texturing, or the trim sheet textures, or the modeling techniques, I'm sure the studios and the team will teach you all those stuff no matter what. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell that to people a lot as well in the environment art and props and stuff. It's just like, be concerned about making something that just looks really nice. And, you know, as long as you're not absolutely crazy about it and go and make something that's 16K texture with, you know, like super high poly model, that's fine. Just first and foremost, though, sell your art. And I guess that kind of technical stuff, like you guys said, comes up in the interviews more than anything, right? And if not, then you usually learn it on the job regardless. But yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, just maybe know the basics of the optimization, and that's it. I mean, they will show you and teach you their own workflow.
Don't turn on Shadowcasters. Gotcha.
On a bit of a technical note, Unreal Engine has added some features with lighting. It feels like not too long ago, in the form of the kind of ray tracing stuff they've put in. Has that affected the way that you guys have been working on your scenes? Have you, I mean, in terms of personal projects, is it something you've had a chance to kind of test out with the ray tracing and the dynamic lights? And does that differ from, how much does that differ from what you were kind of previously doing?
Well, I can't run RTX, so I'm really sad. I mean, my scene, if the only thing I tried was the reflection, and this is what cost the most in the ray tracing. So, I mean, I've tried both shadows and reflections and GI, and it looks really, really nice. But to me, I think it's still something that needs to wait for maybe consoles, or not consoles, but PC, for example, because you have to get some really high-end material. And I guess they will upgrade everything with the future updates also as well.
And Peter?
Yeah, same for me as well. Yeah, same for me. I can't run RTX, so I never had a chance to play with it. But regardless, I think the ray tracing stuff is still kind of niche, and you can do most of the work with traditional lighting. Like just the bake it in itself, it's pretty good already. You can try to fake with dynamic lighting as well, but lighting the whole map or everything through ray tracing is kind of overkill and niche, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I found some, because I was working with a lot of really large assets, and I found the one thing about ray tracing that really, really kind of helped was the ray tracing shadows really helped with enormous assets, because you were getting some really crisp shadows that made a lot of sense, and with a big directional light. And I thought, if I could pick, it's the one that has the least visual impact, but it's the one that kind of made my made my environment need less technical problem solving and more just I could click this on and I just had some nice shadows along my terrain and such. And I thought the shadows was one of the most underappreciated additions, I think.
Yeah, I think this feature is the less expensive one when you do this in a large environment outside, like outdoors, open world or something. Because I mean, I read that it was really not that expensive to do this, and you have really good result as everything has a tiny shadow and don't have this kind of buffer where you don't see anything at a certain distance.
So talking about impact of, you're saying shadows on the scene there, I think lighting is perhaps one of those aspects that a lot of people, when they're kind of putting together scenes, and especially kind of beginners and students, are guilty of, is something that gets a bit more neglected. What would you say is the kind of importance and impact of lighting actually on a scene, or what is the most kind of drastic improvement that you've seen from lighting, or you've managed to achieve yourselves from lighting of a scene? Guillaume, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact, I guess, I mean, to me, will be to like reflect your vision of the scene you want to make, like to sell someone a mood, as we said before. And I mean, it's not just like you lit a scene. It's really to add something in it, like a bit of storytelling, a bit of I don't know, something that can hint people that there is something going on here, drive people's eyes to something specific. to me, this is what I try to go as an impact in my lighting. This is what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, I think if you really think about it, without lighting, you wouldn't see anything in your scene, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's literally pretty much. But lighting for me, it's pretty much how to present your work and other people's work. And if you spend 3 weeks on one single asset with super perfect texturing, the modeling is top notch. But then you just throw in a scene with the saddest lighting possible. Well, all that work is gonna be wasted, right? It's the same if you try to think about it. If you're trying to cook a super good Wagyu steak, right? You spend all your ingredient, the most expensive stuff on it, but then you try to eat it off the floor. There's no really, it's not wasted, right? That's not the ideal way to eat it or to present it. You have to properly set a table and eat it off the table with proper utensils, you know?
Good, expensive Wagyu steak before? Curiosity?
Well, not really.
I mean, what Peter said was right. Like, when you work in a studio, seeing that you can make other people's works looking good is really nice.
So, with regards to kind of the impact of good lighting, on the flip side of that, you're saying about no lighting at all, you wouldn't see anything. But what are some kind of lighting mistakes that you commonly see? So you're browsing ArtStation, you're looking at work, you come across a piece, not to specifically call anything out, but you just come across a piece, and what's something that really stands out to you that tells you that perhaps someone doesn't have a good understanding of lighting, or something that they could have done to really take their scene to the next level?
Usually when I see student works with really poor lighting, it's mostly because they're probably trying to lit everything, right? There's no shadow, there's no balance. It's all flat because they want to show somehow everything. And that makes the picture in itself really flat and boring. It's not showing the best potential it could have or it could present. So the balance and the contrast is something really important, and especially the composition of how you present it. Is there even shadows? Is there room lights? Is there a good fill light? Is there a good background?
Yeah, I think one of the thing is you see directly when people don't get correct references. I'm sorry, I'm I'm going back to this, but like if you have good references, you don't have to. I mean, you avoid this kind of issue that you can see sometimes. And also, the thing that I found is this is more what I found with my students, for example, is that they are going into color grading like crazy, and directly, like in the first steps, they just put some lights and then they correct everything in terms of color with the color grading, for example. And this is something that is not good, because if you are doing this in the first steps, you will continue working on your scene with this color grading, and at the end you will want to change some stuff, and it will be like a nightmare to find where you begin to mess with the color, with the contrast of this color and everything. To me, this is the thing that I see quite a lot in student work.
Mm-hmm.
So someone wants to get better at lighting, or they want to light their scenes better. Maybe they're an environment artist, or they want to get into lighting art. what are some of your kind of hot tips for things that they can learn or things that they can apply? Obviously, we've had fine, good references, but what kind of other things or good tips have you kind of got that you could give out to people listening in who want to just get better at lighting?
Ooh, all right. So personally, I didn't. I don't know about you, Guillaume, but I didn't learn about cameras and cinematography before I got into lighting. Right. The way that I learned about lighting wasn't through cameras or cinematography, but more about how to paint. Because I did study it in 3D animation, but before that, I studied in fine art. I did a lot of paintings, like traditional paintings and digital painting as well. I did a lot of acrylic paintings, oil paintings, just life drawing, just with pencil. So my secret would be to learn how to paint, how to choose your color, how to compose a painting, how to read it, how to read an actual paintings that, for example, old master Dutch painters or very old Baroque paintings or mythological paintings or something that a master have done and have spent years on it. They created a masterpiece with, and they could guide the eyes of the viewers in the paintings. And that's basically how to do composition. And yeah, so that's my secret about how to learn about paintings, not paintings, but lighting. And then, of course, going into more technical stuff like cameras and cinema and how video game works. Well, of course, that's going to help as well. How to compose your shot, how to use rule of thirds, how to balance your color, how to the contrast and the color grading as well.
Yeah. I also did some fine art classes when I was in school, and this helps me a lot because you learn so much doing those, like color, composition, and everything. And I joined Peter on the camera side. Like, you have to know how a camera works to fully understand how to create good shots. And maybe to me right now, the best way I found to keep improving is to read a lot of books talking about paintings, talking about photography and cinematography as well. Like having this kind of constant learning curve. And I think this can be quite nice. Like, for example, if you don't had fine art classes or stuff like this, you can learn anything with the right books talking about this. So I guess this can be quite nice as well if you look to go into the lighting.
Question, actually, because obviously, cinematography, super important position. Understanding those things is basically key to lighting, right? But in an environment where the player has full control, you obviously are never going to have the beautiful shots that you can set up unless there's a quick cinematic that takes you through the environment or starts you off or whatever. So what do you think it's some of those skills help with when you have a player that can look anywhere, move around anywhere? What do you think those skills bring to the table? How do you apply them, essentially, Peter?
Well, it depends a lot on the type of games. If you take, I don't know, Last of Us, for example, it's a rather linear game, so you can kind of figure out how the player would move the cameras. You can kind of see the composition that they could see potentially. And if it's a game that's more open world, well, of course, you won't be able to compose a perfect shot all around the players. That's impossible. But the least you can do is set up the proper mood and work with the design of the game, the level art and the game designer and how to compose an overall environment and not a picture itself. But knowing how to do a perfect picture, how to take that one single shot with a beautiful composition and all, it does really help a lot in the long term and in the overall the project. And there's a lot of cinematics as well in games. There's tons of moments that you can figure out how the player would see the characters or the certain key shot that the objective wants to present. So it depends on the type of game for sure.
Yeah, I agree on this. Like I guess the big open world games, they have to avoid certain mistakes by having good lighting that works overall without doing too much, because you can't. And the game more linear, where you can where you can control a bit more, you can have this freedom to spend more time into composition and into good shots.
Right. So I think we're coming up to kind of the end of our time, so it's probably a good time to start wrapping this up. So we've been liking to end by asking kind of a final question, and I've got a question for today. I mean, if Luan doesn't add an extra question like he did before, but
let me think about it.
I'd like to hear, excluding games you've worked on, what's kind of the game that you've played where you thought had like the best lighting, or the lighting really blew you away in a game?
Easy answer. My answer would be the RG 1886. That game is so ahead of its time in terms of lighting. It's insane.
On my side, it's exactly the same answer as this, because when it came out, it was like a total masterclass about lighting and about cinematography.
You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and agree as well. That game was so, like you said, ahead of its time when it came to that stuff. It's really, really stunning.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna throw an extra question in. Gotcha, Peter.
Sure.
Out of all the out of the like movies you've seen lately and everything, what movie had some of the shots that kind of just inspired you so much that you went home and just kind of started collecting ref? Could be any movie from any time or something you've seen recently. Peter.
I would say Blade Runner, the recent one. It has, I mean, it's so good in terms of composition and colors. It's a beautiful film to watch and to study as well.
Yeah. How about you, Guillaume?
I'm thinking about it. This is not easy.
I'll tell you what, I'll go in whilst you think about it. Arrival had some scenes. I don't know if you guys seen Arrival, but it had some scenes with such incredible composition that actually inspired me so much that I based a lot of what I'm doing now in my my current environment out of those sort of shots, and I use them really to guide my environment because they kind of inspired me so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one is really nice. On my side, I think it's not like, I mean, I'm a big fan of Wes Anderson movies, like how he composed his picture is crazy, and also the tone of his colors and everything is something that really inspires me. And I tried for really long time to get a scene with this kind of mood. So, and I never get it. So yeah, I'm still trying.
Yeah, I always find those. There's some movies where you just kind of you get so inspired by, or games, of course, as well, and you just kind of try to replicate it, but you just can't because there's just so much experience that went into it, crafting that shot, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll ask one more thing. Basically, if you were looking for someone to replace you at your job, say someone's applied specifically to replace you, specifically at your job, what would you say are the sort of skills that you'd be sort of looking for, Guillaume?
I would say be patient, because I mean it's in every studio you have to do and redo a lot of time your work to fit really how the direction goes, and creative. Like, we have this chance. I guess Peter would agree with this, that we have this chance in Ubisoft that you can be a force of proposal. Like in AC Valhalla, for example, we try with the lighting. Well, the lighting team, we are two working on the lighting, and we try to propose like tons of stuff that we were liking, even if this was going a bit on the side of the art direction sometimes, and they never said like, no, we don't want that. They said, okay, it's cool. We will try to work on this and adapt this. So I think creativity is a big part of the job.
Creativity and patience. Yeah. Gotcha. It's very easy skills to get, by the way. How about you, Peter?
Yeah, I agree with Guillaume. You can't be romantic about your work, right? Because even if you like it and you find it's the best possible thing that you made, there might be a reason to not have it or to cut it completely for design, gameplay reason or marketing reason or art direction reason. So you have to learn to not be romantic about your stuff and still be interested in the potential of doing something that could be not in the game in the final when shipping it. And I guess I could add a junior lighter doesn't need to be super technical, but that person needs to be I guess he needs to be good at adapting with the situation, especially in terms of technical reason. Sometimes for performance reason you have to cut a bunch of things, and sometimes it's not gonna look as good as you thought it would be, but you have to work with it, and you have to bite the bullet and do something that you think is the best for the game, while it's you can be proud of it at the same time.
Yeah, it's very.
There's no way that you can't expect that the game is gonna be run at 60 FPS with the infinite numbers of light or shadows or whatever you have, right? You have to adapt to the situation, and most of the cases is your stuff might be cut, or it could be reduced by half, or it could be non-existent pretty much, and you have to work with it.
Yeah, absolutely right. You can't be precious. You have to understand that whilst you are here doing art, regardless of what art you're doing art for someone else, essentially. And it's a hard skill to get, for sure. I've learned, it took me a while to really learn that one. Yeah, it's good advice, that one.
Yeah, for sure.
So I had some fantastic advice there from our guest. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. Where can people find you? Have you got Twitter, ArtStation? Where's the best place if people want to have a look at your work or follow you guys?
Well, I'm on ArtStation. I'm on ArtStation and Twitter, mainly. I'm also on LinkedIn sometimes, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I'm on Twitter and ArtStation mainly.
We'll put your Twitter's handles and such on the description for everybody to check them out.
Cool.
So if you want to follow these guys or check out their awesome one, head down to the description and follow that. Thank you for joining us. This is the EXP Podcast. If you want to look at more EXP stuff, we've got the website with all the articles on there. We've got the EXP Twitter, which will also be in the description. And we've got the fantastic Experience Points Discord server, which I highly recommend that anyone who isn't a member of signs up to. Thank you, everyone, for being with me today. That's a wrap on this episode, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.
Cheers.